With that said, we're going to break back into what we've been doing since the start of the new year, which is we've been looking at how we can become the best versions of ourselves with the topics throughout Core 52. First week, we looked at Romans 12:2, right? How we can be transformed and radically changed if we allow God into our hearts, our souls, our minds. And then, to be the best version of ourselves, the second week we looked at Romans 8:1, how we can be free of all the things that weigh us down in life. I love the song that Len and Patty shared with us right before coming up here for the prayer and such, because it really spoke to that, of how there's weights around us that we are fighting in this world, and we just need freedom from that stuff. Romans 8:1. And then last week, we took a look in Proverbs 1:7, how we can gain and then utilize godly wisdom. Now, this week in Core 52, to be the best versions of ourselves, we're going to focus on something that is quite often neglected in our lives and in our culture, and that's the topic of rest. We're going to talk about the Sabbath today. In chapter 29, that's the chapter we're doing, so if you lost your bookmark, we're doing 29 this week. We're going to examine the importance of the Sabbath, or what I like to call biblical rest. That's my definition for that. And not only is rest a commanded necessity by our God in the Ten Commandments, of course, right? But in order to become the best versions of ourselves, there are times when we just need to stop and to rest. And you know, I've lived in Stark County for almost all my life. There's only a couple of years when I went away to college that I didn't call Stark County home. So most of my adult life, I've spent it here in Stark County. Now, I've come to appreciate and love the growth of my community. If anyone knows, I'm a big local sports fan, and I always pay attention to those who go on to bigger and better things. And with the growth of Stark County, I've seen the success of many people in our society move on to incredible things. However, I must admit, with amazing growth, I've also noticed the death of something in our community. And maybe this isn't too high on your annoyance list, but it is on mine. We've seen the death in Stark County of the stop sign. Have you noticed this? The death of the stop sign, okay? The reason I point it out is because everywhere where I go, where a four-way stop used to suffice to control traffic, now it's turned into a traffic light. Now, inherently, there's nothing wrong with traffic lights, okay? Except if you're me. And traffic lights can smell you coming. They sense the fear as I pull up closer and closer, because I don't care if there's no one coming the other way at a traffic light. I don't care if it's in the middle of the night. I don't care if it's at 6 a.m. when I'm driving here to Canal, Fulton. I hit every light red. I do. As I approach a traffic light, is guaranteed to turn red. Yeah. As I get older, like Mike apparently, we've accepted our lot in life, haven't we? It's just meant to be that way, I suppose. But, and there's always a but, when I was younger, when that traffic light would turn from yellow to red, it didn't mean slow down, it meant speed up. You know some of those people. Don't you see those people on a weekly basis, whether that's your commute to work or whether that's your trip to the grocery store? Maybe you're one of those people. Shame, shame, shame. As the light is warning you to stop, it's imperative to listen, but oh, too often, what do? When we're warned to slow down, we don't stop. What do? We speed up. And the reality, in our Bible at times, I think of it much like a traffic light, okay? Our Bible, it tells us when things are good to go, green. It tells us when we need to slow down, possibly. That's the yellow, right? And then, of course, there are things in our scriptures that we just have to stop, which is red. And the Sabbath, I think it correlates that really tricky moment in life when you come to the traffic light and it turns from yellow into red. That's what I attribute to the Sabbath. And here's my question to you this morning in this sermon. When that light starts to change in life, do you plow through it, speeding up at all costs, ignoring it? Or do you slow down and stop? Because every time that you gamble going through that yellow light, that red light, there's a chance that it could be catastrophic. In our scriptures, one of the very first places that we see the Sabbath mentioned is in the Ten Commandments, very well known. Lots of people know the Ten Commandments. We're going to go through the commandment of the Sabbath. Let me read out of Exodus 20. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son or your daughter, your male or female slave, your livestock, or the alien resident in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and consecrated it. Now, friends, the Sabbath, it's not one of these situations in our scriptures that we read about. It's not a traffic light that we just have the option to blow right on through. No, it's a commandment. I think God really wants us to understand the necessity of rest. That's his ultimate goal. And when we don't, there can be consequences to that. And I'm not just talking about the proverbial traffic ticket, okay? I want you to think about it on a deeper level. I'm talking about spiritually, emotionally, mentally, relationally. Without rest, all these other things suffer in our lives, do they not? But I think it's important. Let's take a step back for a moment. Let's start back at square one when we talk about the Sabbath. Let's discover and define really what the Sabbath is entailing. What's the Sabbath in the first place? What was God trying to do with this one of 10 commandments that he gave us? The word Sabbath, when it's translated, it stands for a deep rest, okay? Or maybe more appropriately, it can be translated as a deep peace. So much so that it's a synonym to a very famous Hebrew word that many of us know from peace as shalom. Shalom, which is the Hebrew word for wholeness, for completeness, for flourishing in every dimension. That's the beauty behind that word. They're very close synonyms, Sabbath and shalom. Sabbath, hear me, is all about restoring the diminished. It's all about replenishing the empty. It's all about repairing the broken. I'm going to be a broken record this morning because couldn't we use more of that, those things? Restoration, replenishment, repairing. Couldn't we all use more of that in life? After all, who doesn't get tired? I know I'm tired this morning. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, we get tired. And in order for you to be the best version of yourself, I think there's times when we need to heed that proverbial traffic light and just stop. The Sabbath, it's not just emphasized, though, of course, in our 10 Commandments. That's of course, a big part